today's presentation, which is building your brand for multifamily business. My name is Devin. Abel is our co-host here, and we're going to introduce ourselves in just a minute. But that's today's topic, is building your brand for your multifamily business, and we're going to dive right in for you here. The vision, Abel, you want to kick this one off?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Nice to have everyone. Really, the meetup for us was intended to bring networking events, investors, operators, syndicators, and other, potential individuals that wanted to get educated on multifamily investing. It's an amazing opportunity to do so. That was how we started about a year ago here in San Antonio, Texas. Unfortunately, because of the time and social distancing and everything that's happening, we decided to kick off our webinar series. So we've done these every 2 weeks, and really the goal in mind is that education. Try to bring other investors a little bit of knowledge on multifamily investing. And by attending a meetup, you have the opportunity to join our meetup page. It's on meetup.com, Apartment Educators. And there are other members in the group that you guys can, guys and gals can network with, start to meet each other. And we have these every 2 weeks. We try to make a lunchtime and an afternoon. So really that's the goal for us. So once we come back together here at some point, we hope to shake your hands, meet each other, and establish some substantive business relationships and God willing, do some business together. So that's kind of us on the multifamily side. And I'll kind of introduce real quick our sponsors as well, Apartment Educators. So Apartment Educators really is a education platform for those that want to learn more about doing deals themselves and want to take a more active approach to their investment and retirement strategy via commercial multifamily investing. So they help us, obviously sponsor us. We appreciate their time, effort, and energy. Many of their students are probably listening, and we are also heavily ingrained in everything that we do from the ecosystem building. So the Apartment Educator is a great platform to learn more about education. So we appreciate them. And also the ecosystem itself. If you want an opportunity to meet other people that are investing, if you're trying to raise capital, if you're trying to figure out how to get a deal done yourself, this is a great ecosystem to join. And we are accepting applications into that as well. So we appreciate them and what we do. And also, a little bit about Apartment Educators. So thank you guys as well. And next slide. Questions. If you do have any, please submit them on the bottom. Here you have a Q&A button as opposed to the chat. We'll try to answer these at the end of our presentation. And you'll have an opportunity to continue putting these questions in as we talk. Maybe you'll have something that spurs a thought. Please put it in there and we'll answer those. So let's move right on to the agenda.
So we'll introduce ourselves here. Abel and myself will do a little more of an intro, and then we're going to talk about why multifamily investing. And then we're going to get into the meat of today's content of building your brand, right? And then at the end, we'll do Q&A. So as Abel said, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and punch in any questions you have as they occur to you. And we love doing Q&A at the end. It's a lot of fun. So a little bit about us. My name is Devin Elder. I was born and raised in San Antonio. I'm sitting here in my office in Terrell Hills in San Antonio right now. And I worked for two of San Antonio's largest employers before going out on my own as a real estate investor. That's been almost 10 years now. And in that time, I've done hundreds of projects. I'm an owner of projects totaling about $130 million in multifamily. So hundreds and hundreds of units of multifamily throughout Central Texas. And now I like to share my knowledge, share my experiences, help other people get started on their journey. And why am I here, right? Why am I taking my time out of my lunch to come here, meet with you guys? the main reason is that this business grows through partnerships. This is a team sport, and you have investors, you have attorneys, insurance folks. I mean, the whole team. This is definitely not a solo sport. And so I'm always building my network, always meeting new folks. Maybe I partner with you on a deal, invest in your deal, vice versa. It all starts with building a relationship. That's why I'm here. I think Abel's got, let's see, mute there.
Sorry.
There it
Abel
is.
Checo, nice to have you guys. So I'm from Corpus Christi originally. I've lived half of my life in San Antonio, and I am basically an investor that moved from an IT or professional career, and I've invested in about 800 doors. I started as a passive investor, so half of my portfolio is passive and half of it is now as a general partner and active member. And I love sharing insight, helping others, serving others. I think that's why I've had a lot of success. So I enjoy giving back on education and trying to help others because people have helped me get here. So I appreciate it. And, married kids. So enjoy giving back, obviously for wealth building and creation for my family, because the more people I help, the more people that in turn help us as well. So I'm president of Five Towns Commercial Real Estate. Thank you for having us. Thank you for joining.
Awesome. So Abel, you want to talk a little bit about why we invest in multifamily in general, just kind of an overview for maybe the uninitiated?
Yeah, absolutely. So for some of you that, are new to this, would like to hit it because it may be, something that you've never done before. And when most people think about real estate investing, especially if you have a full-time job, a lot of minds head to residential real estate. So multifamily creates a completely different opportunity for most people to invest multiple different ways by having a stable, reliable asset that produces cash flow with a consistent or a very measurable and consistent opportunity to create great returns for your hard-earned money. So if you're going to invest in something, we love multifamily because of the stable, basically, nature of the asset. Housing is at its basic core, it's a need that we end up fulfilling for a lot of tenants and residents in our area. We improve communities, and it allows us to make a solid return as well. So this gives most W-2 or professional people or business owners or high net worth individuals the opportunity to capitalize on real estate without having to pick up pick up a new house. So you're renovating, you're fixing toilets, you're dealing with tenants, you're having to do this very active, laborious effort to turn something around, like in single family. Well, in a multifamily investment, we let the professionals help us, property managers, asset managers, operators, and syndicators, and we end up putting our investment in something that becomes very active for us. So this investment also leads to a very lucrative tax benefit. For those in the right situation, after you're talking to your CPAs, you may find that it provides you the opportunity to reduce your W-2 tax burden, which gives you creates a virtuous cycle because you have extra money to invest at the end of the year, put in the next deal, and you can rinse and repeat over and over again. And as well as I mentioned, the safe asset part of it. So that's kind of why we invest in multifamily. And thanks for joining.
Okay, so we're going to talk about building your brand today. This can be a very valuable activity for you to engage in over a number of years. As a W-2 employee, you're not building equity in something, right? So as an apartment investor, you are building equity, and a very real part of that is brand equity. So if you go out and you want to build a multifamily investment brand over time, you're going to attract investors, and over time that can be worth a tremendous amount of money to you and your family, and to your investors and people that you bring into deals over time. So why build a brand? You're building a potential multi-million-dollar business over a period of years, right? And that starts with a brand. You can try to go out and do this with a Gmail address in your name. And frankly, some folks do, which is a testament to the power of this business model, but it's better to build it on a brand. The human mind, gravitates towards shapes and colors and a brand, and you can build an identity for that brand that will also let you have repeat customers in the future. It'll make raising capital easier, give you more credibility. And at some point, if you do decide to expand your team, you're going to need to have the brand and the story for the company and the team, not just yourself. You don't want to paint yourself in a corner as a solopreneur, right? And so building a brand lets you scale beyond just yourself. So those are just kind of some of the top reasons on building your brand. Some real basics here. And this may seem incredibly basic, but the fact that a lot of people don't do it is why we put this in here, right? But you want to start with a company name. If you are a multifamily investor, this could be something blank equity. It could be blank management. It could be blank asset management. So ABC equity, ABC asset management, ABC management. The list goes on and on, right? ABC investing, et cetera. Maybe it's your last name investing, and you want it to be a professional brand. So you want it to be short and memorable and not be unprofessional, right? So just kind of some highlights there on picking your company name. If you're starting out, I would think about building your company name around something you can find a good .com on, right? Because you don't want to have a domain name that's 100 letters long or has hyphens or is a .net, right? That's just kind of best practices around getting a domain name. So if you can find, if your last name is Smith, and you can find smithequity.com, smithinvesting.com, smithmanagementgroup.com, those are great things. That example is probably taken with a name like Smith, but my company is DJE Texas Management Group. DJE is my children's initials. Abel's 5 Talents Commercial Real Estate. So, you don't want to labor over this for years and years, but start thinking about that. Your last name could be a good start, and start thinking about that name. Short, memorable is what you want to do there, and build that professional brand. So I mentioned you want to base this around a .com, right? Because websites are really inexpensive and easy to put up, right? Whether it's you doing it yourself on a GoDaddy platform for $10 a month, or whether it's you paying a couple $100 to somebody on a website like Fiverr to build a simple multi-page website for you. Pretty straightforward to do, right? So starts off with a strong name, and a .com that you can find. So I would start there as you're brainstorming names. Just go on the internet and see if the .com's available for $10. If it is, then you can scoop it up. Once you've got that name and that .com, and you don't have to build a website yet, but you've got it secured, then you can immediately get an email address. I like to do my first last name at my company name. It'd be easier if I just used my first name, or if we all used our first name. But every time I'm sending an email, I am branding my name, right? So every time somebody that's never interacted with me is seeing an email from me, they're seeing my full name every single time in every single email. And so it's a little bit longer of an email address, first last name at company domain, but I like to do that as a branding exercise. So it's not just Devin at DJE Texas. It's Devin.Elder at DJE Texas. And everyone that interacts with me over email gets to see my full name. And that's you're always branding, right? You're branding anytime you're doing anything, anytime you're speaking or emailing or interacting with anybody, you're branding, and people are forming impressions of you, right? So part of that impression is we're talking about a business model here that requires millions of dollars of investor capital, right? So if I get an email from somebody with a Hotmail address, I'm thinking, man, an email costs a couple of dollars, and they haven't made that investment yet. How serious is that person about doing a multi-million-dollar project? Now, listen, there's some old school people that have a lot of capital and they can get away with that. That's fine. But if you're starting out, you want to stack everything possible in your favor, right? So if you're starting out with $10 million and you don't really care what people think of you, that's great. That's awesome. If you're starting out to build a brand and you want to create an impression, the email is, it's got to be branded to your domain. So you want to have a short domain, a simple, short, memorable name for your company, and you want to get an email address right after you get the domain. Logos up next. This is incredibly affordable to get done. Now, I mentioned a site called Fiverr before, and the premise is that you can spend $5 to have tasks done by people all over the world. There's multiple sites along those lines, but Fiverr's a good one. You can just Google it. You might spend $20 on it or whatever, but we're not talking about spending thousands of dollars on a logo. Maybe you go that route, if you have a designer or something you really want to work with, but don't let it hold you back. You can get iterations on some designs and logos for dollars, right? $20, $30, $100. And so get some iterations done. If you've got a knack for designing that stuff yourself, great. But if you don't fear it. You can get some iterations done on some logos. Typically a company's got two colors, primary color, secondary color. There's another site called Canva that's gotten extremely popular in the last couple of years. They have a whole kind of design suite built in. I think there's even a free version. You don't have to become the designer. If it's not your strong point, a strong suit, it doesn't appeal to you, you don't enjoy doing it, don't spend time on it. You can spend a couple of dollars and get a logo done. So it all starts with a name, a simple, clear, crisp, professional name, then the .com, then the email. And then you go get your logo done. And then at that point, you want to have a website built. You can get on GoDaddy and build one again for a couple of bucks a month, or you can hire somebody for a couple of $100 to build you a nice, clean, professional website. The takeaway here is less is more, right? 5-page website is fine, right? Homepage, about us. You always want to be able to capture contact information for anybody that's interested. And you can grow that over time. You don't have to agonize over building this incredibly huge site. As long as it's clean, crisp, and professional, and less is more, right? Next up is business cards. And the business card should be clean and crisp and simple and have your contact information and a photo. Personally, I'm not personally a fan of photos on business cards. I think it's kind of cheesy. But when you go to a networking event, if you come out to an apartment educators networking event in San Antonio and there's 100 people out there and you're trying to meet people and build your team, you're not going to remember John Smith on a business card. I'm not. I'm going to blank on it. The human brain is wired to gravitate towards faces and recognize faces, right? So put your face on your business card, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable. You want to step outside your comfort zone. If you're going to be building a multifamily business, this is going to require stepping outside your comfort zone a bunch. So get used to it, right? But business cards should be simple, clean, nothing too fancy. Have a crisp, professional photo of yourself on there. And of course, your contact information, name, phone, email, website, right? If you're going to the trouble of creating a name, buying a .com, creating an email address, go ahead and tie up the social media properties. It'll take you 15 minutes in an afternoon to do it. Tie up the Facebook account for that, at Smith Capital Company or whatever you decide to call your company. Tie up the Instagram on it, right? Tie up the LinkedIn page for the company. Even if you don't have a plan to start posting on those things, go ahead and lock them up so you have them. Because now you've got the ability with not much effort to start creating kind of a media empire here. We live in this crazy time where you've got access to the whole world via these social media platforms, right? So if you're going to go through these steps I've outlined here, go ahead and lock up some of the social media accounts too. And don't get in over your head about spending your time crafting Twitter posts, right? But might not hurt to just lock up the account, right? While you've got it. And then in the future, you can start building out a social media plan, or you can hire somebody to do it, right? Again, you want to think of yourself as the CEO of the business here, and you don't want to be spending hours a day trying to come up with clever tweets that aren't going to do anything for your business, right? But you do want to, when you're building the brand here, you do want to lock up the domains lock up the domain, and lock up the social media platforms, just so you have them, right? If you're starting a new company, lock those things up. And I will say, none of this that we've talked about so far requires you to go out and get an LLC, right? I mean, at some point you can do that, and with the guidance of your attorney, you can get through that. But don't get wrapped around the axle of, oh, I've got to go create a bank account and LLC. This is something you can do for maybe a couple of $100 over a weekend, right? And maybe you want to put more foresight into it and really think about your brand name and go through an exercise. And that's great. You're going to be stuck with it for a long time. So you want to make sure you like your brand name. But as far as executing on what we're talking about here with a website, email, logo, social media, and business cards, this is an activity that can be done easily over a weekend. So,
yeah, and Devin, let me, before you move, right, I think to highlight a few of the things that you said, most people, would say, hey, that's a pretty basic thing. I should get an email and get a web address and lock up my social media presence. But there's many that don't. And I still see a lot of Gmail, Hotmail accounts, if you still have one of those. And it seems, so simple. But these things are the foundation of which you can say, hey, I've taken action today. Part of my assignment in my, building my business and building my presence was to create a lasting brand. And if you know multifamily, or you're starting to learn more about it, you know that it's not a short-term investment. It's 3, 5, 10 years, and you're gonna continue down this path. It's a journey. So start today and make it a point. If you're gonna, start a new multifamily business and you want to go run these deals, and obtain it and do that now. Also, I'll tell you what not to do, which is it seems funny enough, but I still see people do it as well. If you are in single family today, pushing over to commercial real estate or trying to figure out how to do it, sometimes we think, ablebuysHouses.com would be a great one. Or you have a brand and you've invested some time into an LLC that, does wholesaling or does rehabs. Very different model or brand to create in the multifamily side of it. So on that point of, your foundation, you also want to create, your brand to last. You should probably start with who you're trying to attract and what message you believe that they want to hear and why you're in business to do what you're doing. I think if you're really starting on, on your why, on who you're attracting and the messaging and the content, you don't have to make this amazing website, immediately today. But at least if you have it at the core, you've written it down, what your goal is, then everything you're doing around creating a website, creating your logo, doing your business card, your social will be tailored to help those that are coming to your website. So just Devin and I, same exact, I would say, model is you're acquiring assets. You're doing it for investors. We're all trying to create wealth in the process. The goals that I have as a limited partner, as a passive investor in other people's deals, man, I'm trying to create as much wealth as I can and create that legacy through commercial real estate, give me financial freedom. So if I'm on someone's website, I'm going to look for those things. And the ones that are speaking to me, that's the individual that I want to meet. That's the team that I want to do business with. And that's, who I want to invest my money with. So, think of that as you're creating this brand and building your basics.
Great points. Yep. So we can move on here from the basics and we'll talk about some specifics to building a multifamily brand, right? Multifamily investment. One that you're going to want to have is a deck, a PowerPoint, PDF, or white paper, right? And this is an overview of multifamily investing because, we talk to investors that are passive investors in our projects, and we're always meeting new investors. But 99% of the investing population out there might not be aware that you can invest in a syndication as a small partner in a large apartment complex. And there's all kind of great reasons to do that, right? Tax advantages, high returns, safe asset, all those things Abel mentioned at the top of the call. So you want to create a piece of content that is a PDF that you can share that that gives an overview of multifamily investing and why we do this. And then you want to give an overview of your company as well. And if you don't have a track record to point to, one of the keys in this business is partnering with people that do. Right. And so we pound the drum a lot on anybody, any gap or deficiency you have in your multifamily business, anyone, right? Experience, capital, et cetera. You can fill that deficiency that you have with a partner or vendor, right? So it's not easy, but it is simple. What I'm talking about is a simple concept here. Any deficiency that you have in your business can be filled with a partner or a vendor, right? So if you're putting a deck together about multifamily investing and you're going to go talk to somebody about investing in multifamily and you haven't done a deal, you need to have a team, right? You need to be putting a team together to leverage their track record. So you might have a partner and you might leverage their track record. You've done zero units, they've done 1,500 units, and together you've done 1,500 units, right? So you're going to want to have an overview of your company and your partners if you're new. And then you want to have an overview of yourself, right? I'm surprised how much people do not put themselves into some of the marketing materials. People do business with people, right? So if your face isn't in there, I think that's a detriment, right? I'm always an advocate of putting your face in something because people gravitate towards human faces, right? And the reason we do business with anybody is because we know, like, and trust them, right? If we have a choice, that's who we're going to do business with. So you want to build that credibility and that know, like, and trust. So you want to pretty early on, as you're putting this business together, you want to put together some kind of a deck or white paper that's just an overview. This could also be a sample deal package, right? Hey, this is the kind of deal we're targeting with these types of returns. This could be 10 pages. It doesn't have to be elaborate, right? And we've got templates available for our apartmenteducators.com students that we can share as a framework so they can build that white paper, or you can go out and hire a design company to do it for you, right? So you want to have something that you can share anytime somebody starts talking about multifamily investing. Newsletter is the next one that's up. We just published, this is July 1. We just published our newsletter. It's and we number them, right? So this is the 34th one that we sent out. So that right there in the subject line is, newsletter 34. Go, wow, this is a monthly newsletter, 34 months. These guys are coming up on 3 years of sending out newsletters. We've been in business longer than that, but I was late to the game starting a newsletter. But you can see that, hey, that right there carries some credibility of, wow, for 36 consecutive months, these guys have published a monthly newsletter, right? And so pretty soon it's going to be the 62nd monthly newsletter, right, in a few years. And it's the same thing with the podcast, right? Over time, hey, that's credibility and longevity and value, which is what everybody wants. But if you're going to start a newsletter, I like a monthly newsletter, and anybody you talk to that's interested in investing can go on there. And this is, like Abel said, this is definitely the long game, right? This is a long-term play. And so you're building relationships with people over years and years. So if they get on your newsletter, they may invest in a year, and that's fine, right? But at least you're putting something in front of them every month to pay. This is what we're up to. If you're going to create a newsletter, MailChimp is pretty popular. You can get a free account, but give some thought to this ahead of time. You need to publish consistently. Nothing looks worse than, hey, I want to start a newsletter, and you start it, and 3 months later you go, God, this is a lot of work. And boy, the first of the month sure rolls around fast, and I got a lot of other stuff to do. I'm out. And that's going to look terrible, right? That's going to be worse than not starting. Same thing with a podcast. If you start a newsletter and you bail on it, that looks really bad. If you start a podcast and you do 4 episodes and then you stop, that looks terrible. So don't start a newsletter unless you are committing to it literally for forever, right? For as long as you can be busy. If you can't think about committing to doing a newsletter every month for the next 5 years, don't start one. But if you can, and you're serious about building your business, I like a monthly newsletter. Everybody gets too much email. We really try and limit our emails to very important stuff and to a monthly newsletter where we can just kind of consolidate everything. So consistency is key on the newsletter. And really, from a kind of the mechanics of it, once you have a brand and a logo, it's going to be pretty easy to drop that into something like MailChimp and build out, your content. And what I would recommend is you just build a template. right? So, hey, the first section is this, the second section is maybe a news story. The third section is, photos of you at a property or at an event or something like that. And you could have 3 sections every month and an intro and an ending. And it's going to be a full newsletter there that you're not slaving away over for hours and hours and hours. Right. So there's plenty online you can learn about a newsletter. I do want to kind of deviate here. There's a course that Canva has. I think it's canva.com, and it may be free, but Abel touched on building, your brand story and emotions and the avatar of who your ideal customer is. Canva's got a really cool exercise that goes through building a brand that you might want to check out. I believe it's free. Just a little side note there. So if you're building a newsletter, consistency is key. You absolutely want to do that on a regular basis. If you're not ready to commit to that, again, if you're not ready to commit to it for 5 years, don't start it. It looks bad if you start, then stop. What you're trying to build here is credibility and longevity. And does it say you're very committed or credible if you can't commit to a newsletter, and you bail on it? So
Hey,
that's Abel. You got something?
Before you move to, so I will tell you that I remembered those words that Devin said. Hey, don't commit to doing, don't do this unless you can actually commit. So that kept me from launching mine, and his is on number 34. Mine's on number 6, right? I invested for a year and a half prior to that in commercial multifamily. And I think about, just like he said, there was a period of time where he was investing before he did that newsletter. If you take a few minutes of every day or once a week or whatever time period you want to do, this is also an opportunity for you to go learn, educate yourself on either the market, terminology in the industry, a new investment. And if you take that time to learn, even though you believe this is very entry level 101 type of stuff, man, you'd be surprised at your personal network, the amount of people. You may be technically the quote unquote expert in your network that's helping other people get some education, get some information. You don't have to be the expert for the multifamily world that everybody's going to. You may be the expert in your circle. So even just your entry education that you're spending the time on and putting that on your newsletter for people that know, like, and trust you is a great way to take the time to invest in yourself, give back, and help others. And if that's, some of your core premises, it's going to help you in the long run. Just make sure you commit, like Devin said. And then I'll also tell you that, you're starting this newsletter. Well, shoot, where the heck are you going to get people to get on your newsletter? All of the branding, the logos, the website, everything that we talked about, you're trying to attract other people to your brand. You want to grab email addresses along the way. Just because your Facebook or just because your LinkedIn has a big following, make sure to have something that can grab name, phone number, if possible, and at least an email address. That's what you want to do to make sure to keep your newsletter growing every single month. LinkedIn could change the rules. Facebook could change the rules tomorrow. But if you're grabbing, people that are additional viewers, and that's going to help you and your brand continue through years and years to come. Again, playing the long game. So just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, great points. Great points. I'll dive in here on the CRM bullet point here that we have up. That's an acronym for Customer Relationship Management. If you have a corporate job, you probably use one. Salesforce.com is a big one. We use Insightly here internally at our firm. Zoho is another one. I mean, there's a million of them. There really are. But you want to develop this sooner than later because you want to keep track of your interactions with potential investors and also your team, right? Your attorneys, your property management companies. I mean, all that stuff. There's some pretty cool tools to manage that kind of stuff, whether it's building email templates or just tracking conversation with people. So if you're doing a 506B offering, you've got to have a pre-existing substantive relationship with that investor before they invest. And so for the SEC, you need to have it documented somewhere that you guys have met and talked before the investment, right? So a CRM is a good way to track that, not only for the SEC considerations, which are important, but for your own business, right? If you talk to somebody and a year later, they want to invest, you can just jump back in your notes and go, oh yeah, we talked and this and that. And you can kind of pick up the conversation there after a year, because you're not trying to keep all this stuff in your brain. You're keeping it in the CRM. So that's just kind of an important step there. Let's talk about thought leadership. And this is a term that's become popular in the last several years. I think the term itself is a little hokey, but maybe a little self-aggrandizing of how I am trying to be a leader here with my thoughts, talking about stuff. I think it's kind of silly, but that's the term. And so that's the term we're going to use, right? This is basically getting out there with content marketing. This is content marketing that we're doing here right now, right? We're talking about our experiences. We're sharing our how we build our businesses. Hopefully that's valuable to some of you on this call. But you could do this through some different ways. Video, I like video because it's really simple. Everybody's got an HD camera on their phone. Now, some people are terrified of video. I did a 23andMe test and I found out that I am genetically predisposed to not being scared of being in front of a camera. So it's a little easier for me. Maybe it's easy for you. Maybe it's really difficult. If it's really difficult, you don't have to do it. But if you are okay being in front of a camera, boy, it sure is easy to create content, right? You can be out in front of a property. Hey, I'm here with Devin at his property and we're learning about this stuff. That could be a 1-minute video that you shoot on your phone and be a great piece of content for a newsletter, for a blog post, for a video channel on YouTube, you name it. There's repurpose options are endless for content. So video is really powerful and easy to get content out there. Abel?
Hey, Devin, so on this point, I'll laugh because I everything you're saying, man, it completely resonated with me right now. So I've been in sales for 20 plus years. You know, I've led $50 million years in acquisitions. I've talked in front of public speaking. I've talked in front of like literally crowds of hundreds, and up on stage, like when I really get going, I'm excited and naturally, you know, going. But in front of a video, I remember at our former at our job, we worked at this IT tech company for years and grew this company from 100 million to, you know, a couple billion a year. So anyways, they were doing this commercial and they said, hey, we'd like to do a commercial with you. And these big lights come on and they have the background, the backdrop, and they have this awesome, huge camera. That was the first time I'd ever gotten on a video camera. And they did not use my commercial. I couldn't say like complete a sentence for the life of me, man. And
Yep.
It's something about being in front of a camera, and really the past couple of years, if you've started to see me on videos and doing that, that's really me getting outside of my comfort zone to try to get out there. You mentioned know, like, and trust. I heard this also. You do business with people you know, like, and trust. But if they don't know you, they're never going to be able to like or trust you.
That's right.
So I encourage others that are fearful of the camera. Man, I am that person to the max. Not public groups, not public speaking, but a camera, the moment it comes out. So just push through it. It's one of those uncomfortable things that you have to work through. Get uncomfortable. And the more that you do it, the easier it gets, just like multifamily investing. So you'll find the more education, the more times you do it, it builds on each other and you'll do great.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It's a muscle, right? Gary Keller, in his outstanding book, Millionaire Investor, it talks about everything you want is on the other side of fear, right? And that's absolutely the truth here. So are we saying you must do video to be successful in multifamily? No, we're not. But know, like, and trust. I mean, when I first started putting out videos for our channel and our content and our firm, my thought was most communication is nonverbal. So I could talk about cap rates and rent increases and all this stuff, but people are kind of tuning that out and looking at me in the eye and saying, do I believe this guy, right? Is this guy credible? And you could communicate so much non-verbally. Most of the communication is nonverbal. So you just get all of that in a video. And then I'm a kind of an efficiency guy. So if I need to create content, well, man, I got a million other things to do. Creating content on video is super easy to do. Then you can go get it transcribed into a blog post or different things, right? There's different ways to repurpose that content. So we could talk about video for, hours, but suffice to say, it's a muscle. It gets stronger with use. And it can be a really good way to put yourself out there. Let's talk about podcasts. Podcasts have exploded, right? Joe Rogan just got $100 million deal to move over to Spotify, right? We talk
Wow,
about attention.
$100 million.
I think it was $100 million. It might have been more than that. I don't know. That was the rumor. We talk about attention spans being short, right? And social media, people scrolling. At the same time, and occurring at the same time, is people willing to spend hours and hours a week listening to podcasts. I do, right? I don't read books anymore. I listen to audio all the time. I'm talking like hours and hours and hours a day of audio, right? Anytime I'm driving or while I'm working, I mean, all kinds of stuff. So a podcast is a really cool platform. Is it insanely crowded? For sure it is, right? But the reason I started my podcast several years ago now is because I'm not trying to win over the whole world. I'm not trying to be the number one podcast on iTunes. I'm trying to be a hero to a couple hundred investors that we make a lot of money for, right? That's it. I'm looking for a small tribe that I can be a hero to. I'm not looking to take over Wall Street or anything like that, right? Because if I can serve a couple of hundred investors very well, that can build a lot of wealth for me and my family, right? And it can build a lot of wealth for my investors. And when you do something that's a win-win, you can grow it. So podcast is tremendous in that regard. It can also be set up to where you're not doing much other than having the podcast interview. I will say though, this is like, we talked about consistency on the newsletter. Podcast is like this whole other level of commitment and consistency, right? So you could go be a complete maniac like Joe Fairless and do a daily podcast for years. That's just lunacy as far as I'm concerned. But their portfolio is worth tens of millions of dollars, right? I'm sorry, hundreds of millions of dollars. Their equity is probably tens of millions of dollars, right? And a lot of that's through podcasting. It's mind blowing. We do a weekly podcast because that was all I felt comfortable committing to, and I'm very happy with it. I enjoy it, but again, if you're going to launch a podcast, can you commit to it for the next couple of years without expecting a lot of results? If you can't, don't start it. But it is a great thought leadership platform. The last one, thought leadership component might be a book here. You can write the book yourself, or you can hire a ghostwriter. A lot of best-selling books are written by ghostwriters. So if you've got the money and you want to just hire somebody to write you a great book, you can absolutely do that. If you got the time, inclination, skill set, et cetera, to write it yourself and hire an editor, you can definitely do that. I started down the path of writing a book last year and I abandoned it once I realized how much work it was going to be and how busy I am with other things going on. So, but it could be a very powerful thing with what's called the thud factor, right? I mean, if you hand somebody a book and it lands on their desk, that's a very, very tactile thing that is also a perceived high value, right? Because not many people have written. How many people are doing what we do? A lot. How many people have written books about it? A very few, right? Comparatively. So you're really going to set yourself apart if you write a book or have a book written, but you're talking about, tens of thousands of dollars potentially as an investment there. Now in the scheme of multifamily investing, that might be worth it for you. But, those are kind of some thought leadership platforms. Abel, you got some feedback on that or some?
So on the time and commitment side, if anybody has any questions about writing a book, I just started. So I started about 2 months ago.
Fantastic.
I set aside one day a week, a couple of hours where I'm putting thoughts together, and it'll touch on multifamily, but more so about, I'm big on motivation. I'm big on self-improvement. I'm big on education, no matter what realm that I'm in. So I'm kind of highlighting my journey, but as I do so, there are so many nuggets that I've forgotten through the way, and as I'm trying to write them down, it's really valuable, I think to myself and to me. So I think what you mentioned reigns true about the podcast as well. You only need a couple of hundred. I'm not writing it for, I think the intent to make a ton of money off a book, but more so, I think the people that are attracted to my principles, right? My faith, my mindset, my, position on financial freedom for my family. And if I have enough people that say, I really like you, man. I know you, I like you, I trust you. I'm going to read your book, man. That transcends so many hours, so much time of having to explain why you're investing, how you're investing, your your position on risk, maybe risk tolerance. Some investors are a little more conservative than others. Some like this model than that model. None of those are necessarily wrong or right if they're going to make a bunch of money, but your investors definitely should see eye to eye or have some alignment in you. They're giving you a ton of money, so it's kind of my investment, my long-term investment. And then I think about my family, and I want my little one, Abel, my son, to kind of have this book and be able to, oh, this is who you are, Dad. I'm like, yeah. So that's me writing a book as well.
I love it. Well, congrats. I didn't know you're starting a book, man. That's awesome. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to leave you a 5-star review. I can already tell you.
Yeah, baby. I think mapping it out, even the structure and outline, I think I'm going to be at it for a year.
So, that's right. That's a commitment. Yeah. And I mean, and I think people instinctively know that's what it takes. Right. And so when they see the published book by Abel Pacheco, they go, well, that didn't just happen. That's some commitment right there. Right. And it's going to put you on another level of authority. Another thing before we move on from this page, I want to touch on is that all of these are assets, right? So you're building assets for your company and your firm that can serve you for years to come. You're also networking with people in a tremendously scalable way. I had a meeting with Jay Popson. He's Gary Keller's business partner, right? And he said, if you're going to grow your business, you've got to have a one-to-many relationship. You can have one-to-one relationships, personal relationships, and of course you're going to have those. But at some point, you've got to have a one-to-many relationship. Being an author is one-to-many. It's you writing it, and many people can consume it. Having a newsletter is one-to-many, right? You're one person writing a newsletter, and thousands of people can consume it. Same thing with a podcast, right? And so if people are listening to me on my podcast for hours, I mean, investors come in and go, hey, we've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and we want to learn more about your firm. It's like, well, if you listen to a few of my podcasts, you pretty much know who I am. I mean, you've already spent time with me, and it's almost like we've already hung out, but it's completely scalable for me to do that because people can do that on their own schedule. And so you're creating a scalable way to network with people that works 24/7 while you sleep. And that's one of the huge reasons we do all this stuff here. Just wanted to touch on that before we moved on. So we can move on to some Q&A. We don't have too much time left in the presentation here. So if you've got Q&A, you put it in the chat box below. We got a question from Ernest. Hey, Ernest, what's up, man? Will a replay of this be available? Yes. And I think we're going to have this at apartmenteducators.com. I believe if you go there, you can get the webinar replay. And I think maybe there's some more detail there, but the short of it is if you go to apartmenteducators.com and you can go there and see a replay of the webinar. apartmenteducators.com/events. And that will take you to the webinar. So yep, you can absolutely do that. I don't see a ton of other questions coming in. What software or company do you use for capital raising platform? This is such a great question. In our firm, we use AppFolio's platform. I'm very happy with it for a lot of reasons. There's CrowdStreet, there's Juniper Square, there's spreadsheets. There's a lot of different ways to do it. If you're doing your very first deal, it might not be, you might not want to invest in the software. But if you're doing multiple deals, you're building a bigger firm, I think a software portal is a must. I mean, it just is so helpful. It's going to save you a ton of time. It's going to be easier for your investors. So we use AppFolio. You don't have to use anything to get started, but CrowdStreet's okay. I think they want to, my understanding in my conversations with them, they want to, charge you for the software, but they also want to have their investors come through it. So we're not on that platform, but we've been pretty happy with AppFolio. So that's what we're using. So we got a question here. So the AppFolio property management is separate software from their investment management services. Totally different platform, completely different in every way. We got a question here from John. What was the biggest hurdle once all your systems were set up? find deals, investors, or did you have a partner on your first deal? So getting started, for my story, it was very organic. I started out with houses using hard money lenders and did hundreds of those, and then graduated to multifamily over a period of years. So I think the hardest part is the deal. I think it's the deal. You need it's a tripod, right? It's a stool. You need deal, money, team in anything, right? And I hammer this into my kids, right? I got young kids. All right, guys, you're going to go make something happen. You need a deal, you need money, and you need a team. Got to have it. So deal, we'll talk about that. Money, if you have a great deal, people say it all the time, you can put together the money, or you can put together a team to get the money. And then the team, you always want to be building that. And you could start doing that today with starting to, meet people that might potentially be on your team. So it's a tripod, right? Deal, money, team. I think deal's a big variable, right? Because you're going to need to do all three, but yeah, you're going to need to go find a deal that pencils. But you're always working on all three. Great question.
And I'll answer from a different perspective, right? Younger indicator on my side, for me. So when I started, I absolutely used a partner. You're looking at Devin for most of this webinar here. He was my first partner, and I had built a level of trust with him because I knew him previously from our professional world. So that helped a lot, having a partner that knew my goals. I asked if he would help me through the process as an investor, absolutely. And so that partnership is something that I think was the key to get my first deal. I do not believe that I would have been in a deal, honestly, had I not had a partner help me through the opportunity. I probably would have still been fumbling through, try to get my first one. So I think that is key. And at the same time, while establishing trust, taking education, and learning for myself how to do it, I still was raising capital even before my first deal occurred. And the advice that was given is you don't want to be raising capital when you find an amazing deal today. You want to be raising capital months and months, a year prior, so that way when you finally get your deal, you already have some investors with you. So it is a chicken and the egg. Hey, which one do I do first? I definitely didn't have platforms set up. I started, talking to other investors, people that knew me, people that asked me questions about investing, and asked them if they would be interested in investing in the future. So I was lining that up at the same time. When Devin says build your team, that's the networking part. Who do you know, like, and trust in your area? Who do you know, like, and trust that's investing in the markets that you want to be in? And if you can put those things together, you come together with the deal, and all the things are kind of moving in motion. So that was how I started there.
Awesome. Yeah. Great perspective. Okay. So we're kind of wrapping up Q&A here. If there's anything else to come in, what is the number one way to get in front of high net worth individuals online? Do you buy stuff on Facebook ads? I don't, right? So, you could try that, but really it's going to come through existing relationships, for sure. Right. So you gotta either have a track record or partner with somebody that's got a track record. And then I don't think there's really any one way to get out there and just get in front of high net worth individuals. There's a million ways. And I think, I don't think there's one way that is just totally dominant, because you got to remember, if somebody's a doctor, they're getting pitched a lot of different stuff, right? So it's best to start with your network and networking events of like-minded individuals. That's the best way to get started with that stuff. We got a question from Greg here to touch on Abel's great point. As a new company, do you advise putting the word out there and raising verbal commitments first, or do you find a building, then raise capital? My thought on that is you're always talking to people. And a sample deal package is a great way to get started here, because you got something that says, hey, this is the profile of what we're looking for. But yet you don't want to find a deal and have never talked to investors. We tell our coaching students, you need to have a line of sight to the equity before you go try to get a deal done. You need to, if it's $1 million equity you're raising, you need to have a way to raise that before you go find the deal, which means you're always talking to investors first. And while they may not give you a verbal commitment on, you don't have a deal, so they can't commit to it, but they may commit some interest, right? And you definitely want to do that before ever going to try to find a deal.
Exactly. Same. But yeah, I think I touched on that, and we talked to a student yesterday that's trying to figure this out, and the advice, if they didn't have the money to spend on the CRM just yet, the Excel, like Devin mentioned earlier, has something, but you're creating your list and you're explaining a sample deal package and giving them the highlights of it, how it works, what type of investment, what their returns are going to be, what type of distribution model, are they partners, are they not, what SEC regulated, Reg D 506 B or C is, all of the things that go into this investment, you're explaining that with a sample deal package. And if you've never invested passively, use a sample and just say, this is kind of what I'm going to be looking for. If I find it, would you be interested in, talking about this once I do? If you've invested passively, which is how I did it, I said, this is an actual deal that I'm invested in today. If I found something like this, would you be interested in investing in it also? Because I'm going to, eventually get into the active side. So absolutely, that reigns true. Don't wait to do that now.
Yeah, great point. So we're just about at time here. We want to talk about our next event, so you guys can get it on the calendar, and that is July 22nd at 12 p.m. Central. We're going to talk about 5 multifamily myths debunked, and as always, we're going to do a lot of Q&A, and we love that part of it. So you can go to apartmenteducators.com/events to register for that, and go over to Facebook and like our page so you can see everything that we're coming out with in the future. And we are super excited to come out and meet you guys soon, hopefully at a live event. But in the interim, thank you so much for joining us for today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.